Have you ever wondered what living your true, authentic life would be like? And doing so fearlessly, undeniably, and unapologetically? Is such a way of life even possible? My answer is yes, it is. Welcome to my podcast, From Fearful to Fierce. My name is Sarah Odo Grossfather, and I will be using this space to share simple, easy to implement tips on how to become the best version of yourself by living authentically, unapologetically, undeniably, and fearlessly. From Fearful to Fierce is based on my FFTF trilogy, which is available on Amazon, by the way. A series on the importance of knowing, accepting, and loving one's self. So, whether you are struggling with imposter syndrome, self doubt, or just looking to level up your confidence game, this podcast has got you covered. So, get ready to take on the world one fearless step at a time as this podcast unravels and tackles some of the issues that prevents us from becoming the best version of ourselves. Once again, I'm your host, Sarah Odo Grossfather. You can't make someone until they are ready to be made. That's the title of this episode. Let me explain. Recently, I was in a shop or space belonging to an African woman in the diaspora. And whilst I was there, she seemed very upset about something. You could tell that she was not her usual bubbly self. So I asked her what the problem was. And then the dam just broke. She started to complain about an issue that was happening back home in her home country. Apparently, this woman had been sending money to her sister back in her own country to try to get her to do something that would keep her and her family sustained. This woman here in Europe, according to her, she she had been responsible for carrying her sister for a long time, her sister and her family. The sister was married with at least with 4 children, rather, and she's been helping her pay the kids' school fees. And because she too has her own life here, she has her own children and she's married, it was the burden of just taking care of her sister's home was getting too heavy on her shoulders. And so she decided a while ago, she said, to start something for her sisters, to start a shop, a business that the sister can do to just help her. According to this woman, she said she didn't mind that she was supporting her sister, but she just didn't want to be the one carrying the entire load of the sister's home. So she thought the way to do that was to set up business for her sister. She started by setting up a store, and somehow that didn't work out. After less than a year, the capital went. There was no profit. You saw neither profit nor capital. That just went. And the money, of course, went along with that. The initial investment went along with that. So she asked the sister, what about food? And the sister said, well, food is something that sells a lot. Food can never go wrong. You can't go wrong with food. And so she thought, okay, let her set her sister up with food. The first one was provision store. You know what that entails, having a restaurant. So there were the chairs, the cooking utensils, everything that you need to set up a restaurant. So she did that, and she said she actually took a breath because she thought when this worked, this will relieve her of so much of the burden she's been carrying, maintaining her own home and then her sister's home. And so she actually sat back in the expectation of the success of the business she set for her sister. She said 6 months down the road, the business was not happening or it wasn't progressing well as she had hoped it would. And so she simply thought maybe, with initial business, they needed more money. Of course, the sister told her she needed more money to do add one or more things. And because she wanted it so much to work for her sister, this business to work for her sister, she just sent her more money. To cut a long story short, 2 years down the road, that business also failed. And now she started thinking, what else can she do? Meanwhile, now she's invested twice in her sister, in a business for her sister, and both businesses had failed. And she was still having to support her sister. It was her sister. So she felt, what else can she do? So she now called her sister. She said she called her sister and actually asked her, think very carefully, what is it you would really like to do this time around? Something that will not, something that will not need so much capital, but something that can just bring quick turnovers, quick money, however small, just something that can sustain you and your family in one area. At least if you can feed yourselves very well, I can then chip in with the school fees every now and then. The sister thought about that and she said she wanted to sell weave-on, to a lot of black people out there, hair extensions, things to do with hair extensions. That moves a lot in many places in Africa. So she asked the sister to go back and think about it. And the sister thought about it and came back and said, yeah, she believes that would really work because she wouldn't need to be buying anything. All she needed was money to set up the store, or she could convert the restaurant into a store and then money to actually start investing in the extensions. And the sister said she thought about it and felt, okay, this one has a better chance of working. Again, she poured money into that. Well, to cut a very, very long story short, again, that business failed. And now she had invested 3 times in business for her sister. None of it worked, and she was still having to carry the load. And as you can imagine, this really stressed this woman in Europe. She just felt so burdened by it. And she said, so she decided at one point she was so tired. She was, and again, very angry because she felt she had asked the sister what she wanted to do. And the sister had done research. She just felt that she had been lied to, either that or the sister wasn't putting in as much effort as she should. So this woman actually said she felt that if only she knew, if she had known, she would have put all that money aside. The money she had invested in that business, she would have put that aside and actually used that to educate her sister's children, since it seemed that she was going to have to be the one to do all of that. Anyway, when I heard this woman's story, I had to laugh in a sense. Not laugh because it was funny, but laugh because it reflects the stories of so many Africans in the diaspora. I know that this story was not limited to those from Nigeria. You ask anyone and they will tell you the same story. It's just the region that's different. They will tell the same story, how much they've tried to make their family members back home. And somehow, in most cases, their efforts have just been like in vain. It was been like pouring money down the toilet and flushing it. And then I had to also realize in my own self that similar or thing has happened to me. Like I said, the title of this topic is You Cannot Make Someone Until They Are Ready to Be Made. And I think this is a problem that a lot of people in the diaspora have. Of course, when we travel abroad, when we come abroad, we want so much to also bless our people back home. And we pour this money into these people back home, hoping that they will use the money wisely, they will use the investment wisely, hoping that when they do, because you want to go back home and feel that life is also good for them at home, that you have used the resources to also better the lives of your family members and people that you love back home. So it can be quite disheartening when you do all in your power and years down the road, it seems as though you've not done anything. That people will even look at your family sometimes and be tempted to think, if they didn't know what you are doing, they were tempted to think, oh, how is it that she or he, they're living abroad, they're living large, they think you're living large. And then you look at your people back home and they're living basically from hand to mouth. I know people who have done so much and have been so frustrated at not seeing the result of or tangible proof of all that they've poured in, that they basically just closed the channel or on their family, their extended family back home. They've just simply said enough is enough. And in some cases, when these people stop sending help to their people back home, more often than not, the people that they have helped for so many years, when you stop sending these same people help, all of a sudden, you will be demonized. You'll be rubbished back home. In fact, if people in your community did not know, they would think that you have never even sent one iota of help to your people, that you have never even ever helped them. I know of many cases where people have sent money, even to their own mothers, the mother who gave birth to them, to either get a land and build a property or just to invest in something. And the mothers have told them, oh, yes, we bought the property, everything is going on well, only for these same people to go back home later and realize that it was all lies. I've known of also people who send money to their brothers and say they bought properties in their names and they will be renting. And the idea is always that when you rent, at least the money from that rent will then go into helping the family even further, not even for the person living in the diaspora, but just to actually help the people back home. And they've told them, oh, yes, it's good, brother, everything is fine, the property is there. In fact, sometimes they go up to the point of sending them pictures or photos of houses, complete furnishings, and they'll say, this is a house. Of course, we've done it. And then, of course, what are you going to think when you see something like that? There's no way you're going to think that your family member is lying to you. After all, the things that you're doing is actually just to help them, to actually make life better for them. But then these same people, they then go home, travel home, and then they ask these family members to take them to the property that the pictures were sent. And I know of one woman who said when she asked the brother to take her to this property, the brother kept coming up with excuses. One day it was, oh, I don't have time. Another, it was at I have an appointment. Another day it was, I'm feeling sick today. It got to the point where the lady herself said, so she went to her mother and said, why is brother just doing this? Someone else must know where this property is. It cannot be that we did something like this and then no one else in the family knows. Okay, since brother cannot take me to the property, or mommy or other sisters, take me to the property yourself. Only for them to come out and say to her, oh no, very sorry, something happened, I had to use the money. And this woman she was so broken. She said she wept the entire time she was home. She could not believe, like, I was still telling her, yes, things are more expensive. Building materials are more expensive. Please send so much money. It's no longer costing this amount. It's costing that amount. And this woman kept sending the money, only for her to get home and nothing was there to show for it. She said when she left home, she counseled her entire family. She didn't care what they were going to say. She counseled them and said, I'm never going to send any help to them. And of course, you can tell what happened when she got home. Or she started hearing news at home that, yeah, she was living large. When they saw her on Facebook, they said to her she was living large. Meanwhile, her family was suffering. In fact, she said one member of the family went as far as cursing her, sending her texts, cursing her, telling her, you think you've arrived. Don't worry, when calamity hits you now, that's when you will know you have a family. You are there living, enjoying yourself. You don't care about us. Anyway, for the 2 hours I stayed in a shop, this woman had nothing else to say but to rant and raved at what our family was putting her, what her sister had put her through. She said she felt tempted to just cut this sister off and the sister's children. But then some of the sister's children, they're very willing to study and they're very smart. And she just felt she was very conflicted because although she wanted to cut off the sister and the sister's husband, she felt sorry for the children because it wasn't their fault that their parents were the way that they were. She said even the sister's husband did not want to work because he was so used to her just sending money. He now came up with excuses of why he could not work, why he just could not work. Several times, works were found for him. People even recommended work for him. He would always say that was either he would say it was below his standard. I don't know what standard that was, since you could not even provide for the family, or it was just work that he could not do, or it was just too strenuous, or it was too stressful. There was always some reason, one reason or another, why he could not pick up the works that were found for him. What am I saying here again in this episode is that you cannot make someone until they are willing to be made. You cannot make someone unless they are willing to be made. A lot of us in Europe or in the diaspora, we want so much to make life better for ourselves. We dream of better lives. Sorry, not for ourselves, for our family members back home. We dream of better life for them. We want so much to look back and see, yes, our travels to Europe was not in vain, or the travels to Western world was not in vain, that we use whatever horror we experience in the course of, being in someone else's country. And there are several horrors. For some who came in here with not very legal, straightforward route, they can tell you of the horrors that they encountered along the way. But when they come here and they make it, they are so grateful. And the first thing they think about is to just use what they've been given to make life better for the family back home. And after investing and suffering, and some of them maybe even cleaning toilets at the beginning, sweeping someone's floor, encountering all kinds of racial slurs, discrimination along the way, what do they get in return? It is that this money they send, this help that they sent back, and they are received with ingratitude. And so the point of this is that however well, or however much, or however desperately we want to make the people that we left back home, the truth is you cannot make someone until they themselves are willing or are ready to be made. You cannot better the life of someone unless they are willing for their lives to be bettered. You cannot push someone to see farther than they can see, or as far as you yourself can see, to see into the future, a future that could possibly be very bright, unless or until they themselves are willing to see that kind of vision with you. And so, to all of those who are in the diaspora, we are talking here about being the best version of yourself. Being the best version means that best version must also reflect in the lives of the people or the people that you love. And so being your best version is not just about you. It includes the community around you. However, when you think about sending aid back to your people at home, be very sure that the person that you're sending help to actually wants that help or is willing to make that help work. Before you start the process of trying to make someone, your loved ones, the life of your loved one back home better. Actually know that that person himself or herself is ready for their lives to be bettered. Otherwise, you will just be putting money down the drain, the money of your sweat down the toilet and flushing it. So, once again, you cannot make someone until they are willing to be made. You cannot make someone unless they are ready to be made. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, this is From Fearful to Fierce by Sarah Udo Grossfatner. Until next time, keep striving to become the best version of yourself. Live intentionally, be unapologetic, be bold, be fearless. Before I forget, don't forget to subscribe to my podcast, like the different episodes, and press the notification button so that when I bring out new episodes, you'll be notified. Thank you very much. Until next time.